Hello, today we are going to run the latest and greatest source code from the KDE Git repository without actually compiling anything. So for instance, this is the KDE Git repository for kwin, which is the window manager and Wayland compositor, kwin, invent.kde.org/plasma/kwin. It's being actively developed and it's using Qt 6. We can see in here set Qt min version 6.5.0. So do we have a pre-built software that we can run without even actually installing? Yes, we do. There's live CDs of Linux operating system, Linux distributions that have the latest and greatest KDE software built straight from Git, such as KDE Neon Unstable Edition. So KDE Neon Unstable Edition, let's download it. So it says good for testing because it actually contains the latest source code. So if you want to check that a bug in KDE has been fixed, after you see the bug being fixed and the Git commits and GitLab merge requests being approved and merged, you would need to actually run the latest and greatest binaries compiled from the source code from Git in order to make sure that the issue was actually fixed. So this is what we're going to do. We're going to download the ISO. Let's create a directory. Okay, so there's continuous integration machinery that is taking the latest source code from the KDE Git repositories, creating deb packages out of those, and then it's creating a Debian repository with those deb packages, and then those are made available on top of KDE Neon User Edition, which is using Ubuntu 22.04, which is the latest long-term support version of Ubuntu. And then from all of these, a installer ISO file is being created. The ISO file has finished downloading. Next up, we are going to actually run it on real hardware. For that, we will need a USB stick or USB thumb drive. Let's insert it into a USB 3.0 slot. Okay, so it appears in the operating system. We do not want to mount it. We want to take the ISO file and put it as is using the Unix executable DD onto the USB drive. So let's open a terminal. Let's see where this USB drive is. So it's SDA 28 gigabyte. Okay, there's a partition in there, SDA1. So we want to override the entire SDA. So we have the ISO file in the current directory. For that, we're going to use DD. Let's look at the manual of DD. So it says block size something better than 520 for speed, so probably we're going to go with block size 1 megabyte. We're going to write the entire file. Input file is going to be the ISO. Output file is going to be /dev/sda. And then we might want to go with status and progress. So let's prepare the command line. So that's dd. I have the ISO file, which is this one. of/dev/sda, but we'll confirm it once again. And then block size 1 megabyte says that uppercase M is megabyte, not mebibyte. No, mebibyte, not megabyte. Right? And then status equals progress. This thing. Okay. So /dev/sda is correct. The neon and ends with .iso is the input file. So everything seems okay. Let's run it. We cannot actually do it because I'm not a super user. Okay, so it's going to take a while. We'll be back after it finishes. DD has finished. We now have a different, let's run lsblk. So we used to have one partition on the USB stick, now we have two. And the configuration of the partitions is different. The previous partition used to take all of the space on the USB stick, and now we have two small partitions on the USB. Next up, we will need to restart the computer. Then we will need to enter the BIOS UEFI. In there, make sure that booting from the USB stick is allowed. And then the boot order starts by booting from the USB stick, not from the actual hard disk NVMe that I have. Your UEFI screen will be different from mine, and the way we enter UEFI will be different. So for some motherboards, you use the Del key, you press the Del key repeatedly 1,000,000 times while the computer reboots, or F8 or F12. That's the three most common, or F2. The most common keys that you need to press repeatedly while the computer is rebooting in order to enter BIOS or UEFI is F2, F8, F12, or the delete key on your keyboard. Once we're inside the BIOS, depending on your motherboard, the BIOS will look different, and you will need to make sure that booting from USB is allowed, and then the USB is the first place from where the computer will start. If your BIOS is configured correctly, you do not even need to enter the BIOS. There's, in parallel with the BIOS, there's a thing which is called a boot manager, which is probably F10. So while the computer starts, you press F10 repeatedly, or some other key on your keyboard. It will show the boot menu, and in there you are able to select from which device your computer should boot. you can temporarily switch the order. So for the next reboot, it will boot from the device that you select. Whereas from the BIOS, you can set to permanently first boot from the USB stick. From the boot manager, you can select that just for the next time the computer starts, it should boot from the USB stick. So we'll be back with some screenshots from my UEFI BIOS boot manager. So I have restarted my computer. Once the computer starts, it says that pressing the del key, which means the delete key on my keyboard, I will enter BIOS, which is UEFI. The other keyboard key is F12, which shows the boot manager, which allows me to boot from different devices that exist on my computer and even from different partitions of those devices. And the boot manager looks like this. Please select a boot device. Again, to enter this, we need to restart the computer, press F10 a million times. It will enter the boot manager from my motherboard and presents me with this list. By default, it tries to boot from my UEFI, but in here I can select to boot this option, the third option, UEFI Kingston Data Traveler 3, or the fifth option, which is Kingston Data Traveler 3 without UEFI at the start. This option partition 2 will not work. And both options 3 and 5 will actually boot the live CD, so the ISO that was written to the USB stick, but just for the next time the computer boots. So you select in here, press enter or click with your mouse, and then it will boot from the device that you have selected. If you reboot, then it will still boot from the device that was configured in the BIOS to boot from first, which is my NVMe. So it's very convenient. You just restart your computer, press F12, select another device to boot. The next time the computer reboots, it's like you did not do anything. It will still boot like it booted yesterday. Okay, if you want to make these changes a bit more permanent, reboot the computer, enter UEFI. In my case, it's the del key, delete key. This is the way the BIOS UEFI looks on my computer. It has tabs at the top, and in the tab BIOS are the boot options. So by default uses the NVMe, but you can select that option 2 becomes option 1, so that it will always try to boot first from UEFI Kingston. After you have changed the boot option priorities, you will need to save the settings, which is available in the last tab in my UEFI BIOS, which looks like this, which is called Save and Exit. You select the default option, which is Save and Exit in here, press Enter, and then press Enter again to confirm the dialog Save and Reset, Save Configuration and Reset. So press the Yes button. This time, no matter how many times you reboot the computer, it will always boot first from the USB stick. Okay, so the computer has booted. We're inside of the live CD, as it were, so your computer might just not have any form of storage. You can remove your NVMe, your SATA, hard disks, SSDs, or any other kind of storage. All you really need is the bare bone computer, a motherboard, keyboard, mouse, monitor, RAM, processor, so no need for any form of storage, plus the USB stick. So even if you do have storage in there, it will not be touched. It's like the storage does not even exist. The other resources of your computer will get used. So your computer, your memory, etc., your processor, CPU, your memory, RAM, monitor, keyboard, mouse, and USB stick. It's a very safe way of testing the latest version of KDE Plasma on real hardware without affecting whatever you have installed, your operating systems that you have installed, or your data on your storage. And do make sure not to install the product if you're evaluating like this. If you want to run the latest and greatest KDE Plasma each and every day, do not install anything to your hard disks. The installer is available here on the desktop. It says install system. Do not touch this icon at all. Okay, so let's see how this version of KDE Neon Unstable Edition looks like. So this is the Welcome Center. The wallpaper has in the bottom right a watermark that says KDE Plasma 6.0 dev, visit bugs.k.org to report issues. We can see the KDE Plasma 6 panel is floating. There's 5 pixels below the panel on the left hand side of the panel and on the right hand side of the panel. And in general, everything should work correctly while you are running inside of live CD mode. Even installing applications should work. The web browser should work, the settings, applications should work, everything. So it's very advantageous to actually test. What is this? Okay, you might encounter issues because again, it's built straight from KDE Git repositories, and also the entire ISO might not be bootable today. You'll wait a day, tomorrow a new build will be created of KDE Neon Unstable Edition, and maybe that version of the ISO is a bit better and boots correctly on your computer. Okay, so this is the Welcome Center, the first run wizard. It should not open a second time after, so it's a first run wizard. You go from start to end through the wizard. Next time you reboot the computer, for instance, it should not appear again. Okay, let's see if we can change the cursor size. Cursor, please, we cannot, we can. Yay, we can. So it used to be at the bottom, the button in the combo box for selecting the size of cursors in KDE Plasma 5, and in KDE Plasma 6 it has moved to the toolbar. Okay, let's see if we can do all of the settings that I usually do. So that would be edge. Don't do anything. And this should be 15%. And now you either try to reproduce the issue that you want to make sure was actually fixed, or you can do exploratory testing as I'm doing it right now. Do the things that you usually do. If possible, install some software, uninstall some software, look at your favorite application, do some of the things that you usually do on your computer. Okay, what else? Fonts, subpixel, RGB, cool. Let's make the fonts smaller, like really small. Let's go back to what it was. 10 pixels probably. Okay, so again, do your exploratory testing as you would regularly do. There's some display glitch here, but the search functionality does work. Okay, let's see if we're in Wayland or not. Where is the information? About this system. So we're on Wayland. So it seems that KDE Neon Unstable Edition tries to log into the KDE Plasma 6 Wayland, not X11, if possible. Let's see if Info Center works. These two are similar. Okay, so this would be it. Once a day, if possible, the KDE Neon Unstable Edition is being built using an automated continuous integration machinery that uses fresh source code from the KDE Git repositories. It's useful for you to test this ISO both on virtual machines and on real hardware, such that you can find and report issues earlier, and also that you can see if an issue that you're observing and that you see it was fixed both in bugs.kde.org and also in invent.kde.org. You will make sure that it was actually fixed in your case. Maybe 90% of the issue was fixed, all of the parts that could be reproduced by the actual developer, but then your case is a bit special. You have a bit more different hardware, a different GPU, and maybe the issue was fixed for most of the people, but not for you. So do test KDE Plasma both in virtual machines and on real hardware. And the easiest way to actually test is if you're using pre-built software. You don't build the KDE software from Git yourself. and even easier if you don't even have to install anything on your computer. You just download an ISO file and run it in live CD mode. Thank you.